How do you stand out? Change the rules of the game.
This is Nick Bare. He built a $50 million personal brand all by doing one thing: reinventing fitness content. What's even crazier is that he did all of that while spending nearly 15 hours per week training for sub-3-hour marathons. So what's the secret behind his personal brand? And how can you as a founder leverage to grow your own personal brand even if you're not in fitness? Well, you might think that it's just because he's been doing this for 10 years. I mean, consistency, right? But the answer to that question is much more than just being consistent. So after spending nearly 50 hours analyzing Nick's brand, I started to notice a weird pattern. The majority of what he's doing breaks every single personal branding rule that you've been taught. And oddly enough, all of the personal brands men you admire all follow at least one step of this framework. And the ones that don't either never get off the ground, or even if they do, never end up lasting more than a couple months. So in this video, I'm gonna be sharing the exact 3-phase framework that Nick Bare used to scale his personal brand to over $50 million in ARR that you as a 5, 6, or even 7-figure founder can use to do the same authentically without burning out. No fancy retention tactics, no editing to fry your dopamine receptors, just pure value. Enjoy. So here's how Nick Bare built a $50 million personal brand while spending 15 hours per week training for sub-3-hour marathons and Ironman triathlons. The first thing he did is that he targeted a specific avatar. Targeting 100% of 10% is better than 10% of 100%. And let me actually explain this. So imagine that this circle represents everyone who is in fitness, people who run, lift, lift weights, do kayaking, mountain biking, whatever it may be. Now there are two circles for, this example within fitness. You got runners and you got lifters. But there is this small area where there are people who want to run and lift, or people who are already running and lifting. Now, what Nick did is that he became the authority in this tiny area. And because there are authorities here, there are authorities for runners, and there are authorities for lifters, but there aren't any authorities for people who want to run and lift, or for people who already run and lift. He figured out that there was this gap in the market and became the authority here, which allowed him to become the sole authority in that space and completely occupy. Another thing he did, which is very brilliant and completely changed the game for him, is what I call awareness-based packaging. Very simple. So I'm sure that you know of the awareness triangle. You got unaware people, you got problem-aware people, you got solution-aware people, and then you got product-aware and most aware. But this doesn't really matter for this. We just need this three. So the unaware people say, I want to run or I want to lift. And then Nick goes on to appeal to those people by saying, you should run and lift, by telling the video why you should train like a hybrid athlete, right? And because they now know why they have to run and lift, they have this want. And they say, I want to run and lift. So now they're problem aware. They know that they have a problem, the problem of not knowing how to run and lift. So Nick then goes on to create this video titled How I Balance weightlifting and running. And the main promise, point of the video is saying, here's how you run and lift. And when they do watch that video, then they're now solution aware. They know that they need to train like a hybrid athlete. So then they watch this video, how to train like a hybrid athlete. And the crazy thing is, these two might be the exact same video, but they're packaged in a different way. This attracts much more people, while this may attract less people. And you can see it's reflected on the views, 1.8 million views and 800,000 views. But there is, a caveat here. You don't want to go into an unaware market straight away. These people require much more content to get to this stage. But if you directly target, the solution-aware people, you completely have to avoid this. But while it does, it will at first, but while in the long term may get you less results, when you start out, you don't really have to do that. Because when you are creating content for solution-aware people, you naturally have a higher conversion rate because the people already trust the solution, because people already trust SMMA, because people already trust AI agents, if you're selling AI agents, right? So when you start out, do this, and this is how you should progress with these three types of content. So first of all, you want to create solution-aware. You want to create content for solution-aware people. Sorry, I'm gonna get better at this. you want to create content for solution-aware people. So if you were selling AI infrastructures to businesses, you'd say, here's how to build an AI agent. Again, that's on the title, that's just, the promise, the premise of the video. And then you are going to hit maybe a noticeable ceiling where you notice that, I'm not able to reach much audience because I've already, occupied that market that I am targeting using this technique right here. And then that's when you want to go problem aware. So how to save 10 hours a week, or unaware why you should buy back your time, or why you should use AI agents. Or maybe, I think this is better, why you should buy back your time. Some inspiration from Ramatel. I got this book. So, simple as that. So for now, if you're just starting out and if you don't really have an established audience, if you haven't gotten here, you just want to create content that targets people who already know that your offer, or like what your offer solves, is the solution. Take a look at me as an example. I'm creating content for people who already know that the solution to their problem is scaling their personal brand. I'm not creating content trying to convince people that they need to create a personal brand in order to scale their business or achieve whatever they want. I may do that in the long term, but haven't hit that ceiling yet. So, solution aware, you hit the ceiling, and then you go problem aware, and then maybe unaware. Simple as that. I forgot to turn that light on, so now I look like a professional guru. So, next thing he did is that he attracts, impacts, and converts this audience right here with these 4 formats. And the first format, which is maybe the most sophisticated one and the most bottom funnel one, is the podcast, where he shares insights on health, habit training, entrepreneurship, and intentional living. And the reason this works is because the more people see you, the more likely they're gonna buy from you. There's a study that Google did that said that, what did it say? People need to consume at least 7 hours of your content to buy something from you. And I'm not sure whether this is correct, it's probably lower, but longer content is to 100% going to yield a higher conversion rate. Maybe less views, but higher conversion rate, because you are gonna have a much more nurtured audience. But the reason this is brilliant, especially for Nick, is because what is it that usually accompanies his ICP training? What is it that usually accompanies people while they're running or while they're in the gym? It's either music or podcasts. And if you're already consuming his content, if you've already consumed these formats that I'm gonna mention later, you will be much more inclined to say, oh, let's see what Nick Bear has to say while working out, because what better thing to do than listen to a podcast while working out. And if the podcast is actually great, which it is, I can guarantee that, you are going to become a more consistent listener, and you're gonna listen to it every day. Simple as that. But the thing here, the caveat here, is that you need to ask yourself this question before starting a podcast. Is your ICP, is your dream client, dream follower, dream subscriber, however you name them, going to consume a podcast? Because, for example, I don't consume podcasts. Or, just ask yourself, is the person you're trying to attract with your content the type of person that consumes a podcast, or the type of person who has the routine that enables them to consume a podcast? Simple as that. Then, the second format Nick has is what I call sit-down education, like pure value. But the thing with this format is that Nick doesn't really create this. There are only a few videos where he uses this format, so I don't really have enough data to create a reasonable breakdown. But I am going to cover that in the next videos, because when it comes to strictly educational content, Nick is not the best out there, and I know that you want breakdowns of the best out there. So this is what the next video is gonna be about. Trust me. But essentially, this is just sophisticated value that dives deeper into actually, parts of how you train like a hybrid athlete, which builds trust. Like these two are what build trust, and these two are what build trust and connection, but primarily connection. This is the main point of them. So the third format is the classic documentation. It is what started everything with this video, Day in the Life of an Infantry Platoon Leader. So, unlike what you have probably heard, it's not just about being authentic. You don't create a successful documentation series by just being yourself and documenting your authentic lifestyle. It is a part of it, but it's not the whole truth. It's not, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just what people see. So I dove deeper into what people don't see and created this framework right here. So the first thing that Nick does is that he creates a mission and turns it into a series. So for this particular, example, the mission was, the goal essentially was running a sub 2:45 marathon, which is the mission. And the moment there is a mission, there are stakes, because there's the possibility of you not achieving what you set out to achieve. And due to the fact that he has turned this into an actual series, people are able to see the progress so that they can predict. So if I see Nick Bear, slacking off and eating McDonald's while saying that he wants to run a sub 2:45 marathon, I will make the prediction that he's going to fail. But if I see him training 15 hours a week, consistently not missing any workouts, I will predict that he's much more likely to achieve that. So I'm gonna watch until the end to see if the prediction comes true, and I'm gonna watch all of the episodes to be more assured that my prediction is true. And also because the vlogs are genuinely good. A little hack to make this work wonders is that you want to make the two scenarios extreme. And probably the most exaggerated example of this is someone documenting the journey, like an Olympian documenting the journey, trying to win gold in the Olympic Games. And since the Olympic Games happen once every 4 years, they only have one opportunity, one chance, every 4 years to get that gold medal. So if they fail, and lose gold, 4 years go to waste, a long time, which holds a lot of weight and makes people, adds bigger stakes. So people are emotional and this circle repeats itself. But if they win, 4 years pay off, right? Which also holds a lot of weight and is emotional. But if you want to get people truly invested into your story, you need a why that resonates with them. But I'm gonna cover that here, as you can see, because it really resonates with the next format. So, next thing is that documentation equals leverage. So, the best way I can illustrate this is with this little graphic here. So, training fuels the journey, and the journey fuels the personal brand, and the personal brand fuels sales. So, literally, training equals revenue, training equals money. Training equals growth, essentially. So the takeaway here for you, if the thing that you are doing isn't typically linked to business, for example, if you were a fitness coach or something and you were creating content about documenting your gym journey, it is an example of something that is typically not linked to your business, being linked to your business, but this only works in fitness and some other things. But the point I'm trying to make here is that you wanna find a way to integrate content into your life without any extractions. That's the entire perk, and that's the entire, mission. That's the entire purpose of documenting, plus the connection it builds. But for you, what you get is content without any extractions. For example, let's say I was on a coaching call with someone, which I don't do, but let's say I did. I was in a coaching call with someone and I had this camera here set up filming me while I was on that coaching call. And then sending this off to an editor who edited it without me knowing anything, without me having to do anything, automatically everything. And suddenly I got a video on my Instagram with a clip from that coaching call, right? And I was gonna have that call anyway, so why not leverage it to create some content? Like, there are many moments in your day-to-day routine where you are creating content, you're producing content that you're not documenting, or you could be creating content that you are not, again, documented, you're not capturing. So make sure to have someone, or I think this is the best way to do it, have someone constantly with you, pressing record whenever they think you have like a good moment to clip and repurpose for content. Simple as that. Now, the third thing that this allows for is undercover marketing, and this uses one of the most powerful techniques called show, and this is don't tell. Let me make that all white so you can see it. Show, don't tell. So what he's doing is that he's just using the product within his vlogs. And because Nick is a great hybrid athlete, you instinctively think that if you use BPN, if you use BPN supplements, you also become a great hybrid athlete. So he's selling the lifestyle of Go and More, which I will talk about later, fueled by BPN. So the takeaway here is that you need to show people what it's like to be a customer. Show people what it's like to completely avoid the pain that your offer solves by either becoming your own customer and documenting that, or documenting customer fulfillment and results. And another great example of this is Daniel Dallin. He became his own customer with his Our brand. This is the dress I'm wearing right here for EconFlow by running that brand and documenting that, so people get a first-hand experience on what it's like to be a customer of EconFlow, because he's documenting the journey of growing lenses. I also have a video about Daniel Dallin. It's probably gonna show up here or something. If you want, go watch that. Now, the final format that he is using, and probably the most exciting one, is the documentaries he's creating that are simply masterpieces. And these documentaries are either about a very big race or project, the end of a series, or a concept. But I'm not really gonna cover this because honestly, look at these views: 2.2 million, 600,000, and then 188,000. I'm not saying it was a bad film, but it doesn't really follow what I'm gonna say right here, and that's probably the reason it hasn't really done too well in terms of reach and performance. So a film gives you the opportunity to present a well-built story, and a well-built story is comprised of the goal, why, stakes, and maybe the obstacle that creates the stakes. So goal, why, stakes, and message. And the thing here is that the goal, the why, and stakes, which I mentioned here. Where was it? Here, the why. All of these three go on to make the message hold weight, which I will again mention here. So back to our main point. Emotion drives connection, and connection, if done right, creates community, which I will also focus on here. But let's not talk about it right now. Let's focus on the film. So another great example of this is the film he created called More Than the Miles, where the goal is to finish the Leadville. Why is that here? I'm very perfectionist. The goal is to finish the Leadville 100 ultramarathon. Why? Because it's an opportunity he cannot miss, and he cannot fail the team. He has to do it for the team. So if he fails, he's not really gonna have that chance for the next couple of years, and he will fail the team. And this is everything. But I will again focus on that later. I need to stop saying that. So the message is: if you wanna go fast, go alone. If you wanna go far, go together. And this is when we finally move over to something very, very important. This is everything. This is what makes people care. So what you need to do is figure out a goal and start with why. And because probably you've already heard of that, I think it's much better for me to not give you some vague advice and give you some actionable insights. So I've got this criteria for creating your why, essentially the why for the film or the documentation. And it applies to both. So, is it your genuine why? First of all, which is mandatory. Like, you don't want to present something fake. Also, does the why trigger emotion? This is an effect. If it's mandatory, if it's your genuine why, it is going to trigger emotion, most probably, if it's a big why. And can your audience genuinely relate to it? Which is optional, but if it does, this could also be an effect. If it's your genuine why, it will probably relate to the audience. If it's a very strong why, and you've been building up pressure in order to use this why for a long time. A great example of this is this film right here, where Nick created this sort of film about the day he became an Harman, which, if you just watch the intro, it literally brings you chills. So let me just play it right here.
6 months ago, my mom was diagnosed with an advanced stage ovarian cancer.
Yo, is that right, Mom?
When I found out she was diagnosed, I thought it would just be She's gonna do her chemo, she's gonna get her surgery, she's gonna do chemo again, and that'd be it. And then next month, middle of July, we would do our family vacation in Ocean City, Maryland. But because the cancer was so aggressive, after the surgery and after chemo, it just kept growing back faster and faster and faster. And about 3 weeks ago, my mom went into the hospital, spent some time in the ICU, and her condition continued to get worse. And she ended up going home on hospice with us, and she passed away last week after battling ovarian cancer for 6 months. My mom was like a true warrior. That's the best way to describe it. My mom fought until the day that she died against cancer. And my mom was just a great, fun, positive, energetic person. So I'm going to dedicate all of this hard work that I put in over these next couple months for this Ironman to my mom.
It literally brings you chills because it is his genuine why. It triggers emotion, a very, very strong emotion, and it is relatable. Many people have lost their loved ones, and that's why the film performed so well. Like you can see, 1.6 million views. That's all because of the why. I promise you, if that the why wasn't there, it would not have performed this great. So, another great example of this, and this is probably one of the best examples of YouTube, is this one from Casey Neistat. Not from Nick Bear, but from Casey Neistat. The video is called Sisyphus and the Impossible Dream. So, let's just also take a look at this intro.
The doctor said I'd mostly recover, but they made it clear I'd never run again.
Broken here. Here.
And then, in that moment, a thought. I would heal, and I'd run a marathon, and I'd do it in the impossible time of under 3 hours. Now, a marathon is always 26.2 miles long. And to break 3 hours, you have to run faster than a 6-minute and 50-second per mile pace. That's impossible.
So he's doing all of this to prove the doctor wrong. And it is the actual reason he's doing it. It makes you feel motivated and inspired because it is so it is truly motivating and inspiring. And people genuinely love proving others wrong, especially doctors. Like, people can relate a hell ton to this. So the goal here is to run a 30-hour marathon. Why? To prove the doctor wrong. Stakes, if he doesn't do it now, he's never gonna do it. And the message, you get up and do the thing. But if all of that not exist, the message will just be vague and not hold any weight. But because this exists, the message is perceived as something much greater. Finally, when you are creating a film, when you decide to create a film, timing plays a very big and crucial role. A very big and crucial role. So, let's imagine that this is you at the beginning stages of your personal brand, right? And you bombard people with consistent value. And you start to grow this, like 1 year into this, like 9 months, 1 year. But you reach this point, but you reach a peak where they get used to you, and you suddenly start to fall. Maybe. Even if the value gets better, you may start to fall. Because people get used to you. And they get used to the level of value you're providing. Now, instead of just providing more value and getting to a point where this is unsustainable, and you're starting to give out what you charge normally, what you want to do is you want to disappear for 2-3 months maximum. And what happens then when you disappear, and this is great, is that they realize, people who watched you previously realize that they actually need you. They need the value you provide within your content. So interest in you and curiosity sparks again and reaches an even higher point. And then when you reach that point, like 2 or 3 months, depends on how long you've been providing value for and the impact you made, you publish a film or a documentary about a life-changing period, which could be this period right here where you're disappearing, or this period and any period behind that. So it could either be that or you building something big. So you go absent for 3 months, you disappear for 3 months after consistently posting for 12 months to build your next, big project behind the scenes. And then you publish a film about building that thing. And because you create the film, instead of you just ending up here with a little bit more interest, you end up here. So the crazy thing is, if you just continued posting normally, you'd probably end up here, maybe, where you wouldn't experience the same level of growth. But by disappearing and then reappearing with something special, with something big, what happens is that interest goes here. And this cycle might as well repeat. In order to do this correctly, you need to be strategic with the time you spend on each period. So, for example, if you've been only posting content for 30 days, or a month, or 2 months, or 3 months, and you go absent for 2 months, then it just doesn't work. People are gonna forget you. But if you've been posting content for a year and you go absent for 2 months, and you've created some genuine impact in this period, then people will start to value you more. But if you post content only for 1 month, people will just forget about you. So make sure you actually create a very big impact within that period and get a lot of positive feedback before you go absent. And go absent for 2 to 3 months. Like, that's the ideal. Now, that being said, the final thing that holds everything together, the thing that all of these formats and all of this revolves around: building a community and not an audience. And again, because I don't like sharing vague advice, I actually wanted to share some practical advice on how you could actually do that, how you could actually build a community and not an audience. So there are 3 things he has done. The first one is being the guide and not the hero, which again looks and seems very, vague, but I'm going to explain with these examples. So an example of a hero is your typical influencer, where they are the center of attention within their content. And the reason, and this is an illusion, the reason this content might perform better than this content, which I will dive deeper into in a second, is because their audience typically isn't the main character of their own story. And this might sound like some motivation thing, but hear me out. Their audience isn't the hero in their own story. So they feel this, emotional gap by watching someone else be the hero. And because these are the majority of people who are consuming content, this naturally performs better. But it doesn't mean it's going to convert better, because these people are not the main character within their story. But now, there are these 2 examples. You got Charlie Morgan and Hormozy, which I think are the best out there, where you are the center of attention within their content. Their audience, or your audience, is the hero within their own story, and not your story, and you are the guide. But when you hear that, you suddenly ask yourself, but how can Nick document his journey and create films about his races while also trying to act as the guide? Like, how does that work? Let me tell you. So when you start to look at the bigger picture, when you start to zoom out and see everything from another perspective, you understand what's going on. You understand that he leverages his heroic, quote-unquote, journey to deliver a message for them, create relatability and credibility, and have BPN as his guide. And for me to better illustrate this is like a diagram I created. So for documentation and documentaries, the guide is BPN, and he's kind of becoming his own testimonial for BPN. Now, who owns BPN? Nick Bare. And for the educational and the podcast, the guide is Nick Bare. So everything circles back to Nick Bare. The value circles back to them, and the money circles back to Nick. So not everything, the value to them, the money to Nick. And also the messages for them. So again, the value to them. Now, how can you actually document, how can you create films and document your journey by being the guide and not portraying yourself as this hero? It's very simple. You just frame it as it's about me being the relatable guide. And the word relatable is what matters, because relatable is going to allow you to share stuff that builds a genuine connection, right? It's as simple as that. Whenever you are creating something, like a piece of content let's say, not something, let's not be vague and be specific. Whenever you're creating a documentary series or a film, you want to have this stick in the back of your head. It's about you being the relatable guide. Simple as that. The next thing he has done, which is a category of its own, is his tagline, which is not just tagline, go on more. And as I said, this isn't just a cool slogan. It's a way of life, it's a mentality, and it's a mission. It's something that people can relate to. They can relate to the story behind it. The story of, I think it was, he was on an 8 mile run or something, and his watch said something like, go on more. And he went one more, and he immediately thought of this and created the slogan. And it's also something that unites people. Because let's say that you see someone wearing the same cap with go on more on race, and you suddenly start a conversation with that person. And let's say you also see someone with the same tattoo, with the same go on more tattoo on race and a Convo Sparks, and especially let me speak slower, and especially with a tattoo, the moment you get it, you immediately feel part of the community. So again, this creates community. And another great example of this is again Daniel Dallin. So he created these glasses. So whenever, let's say, I go to an event for entrepreneurs and I see someone wearing the same glasses, and I ask him, "Oh, do you know who Daniel Dallin is?" "Oh, of course, I watch all of his vlogs," and we start a conversation, and this may lead to a business partnership or something. So it positions you and your personal brand as the secret, key to building connections and becoming part of the community of like-minded individuals. So the question is, how can you implement this? Well, you need to craft a slogan, and this is kind of optional because it doesn't work for everyone. You need to craft a slogan based on a story that is relatable and inspiring for your ICP. In some cases, this could not work, but I'm sure you could get creative. And also offer a physical product that your ICP is likely to bring to a place with more of your ICP. This is why the glasses are such a perfect example. I don't think you really need to sell this by its own. So let's say the moment they buy your core offer, you just send this to them as a gift. Now the final thing that Nick Bear has done to build a community, not an audience, is the most obvious one: hosting in-person events. Of the main one being BPN Athlete Week, the biggest one of the year, I think. So his audience gets to meet like-minded people, and they become part of a genuine community, of an active community, of a physical community. And then what he's doing, is that he's documenting and repurposing that for content. Like this video, when you see that video, and you may have a Gone More tattoo, or you have some BPN supplements, or you're just watching the content, you feel that Nick is this person or Nick and BPN is this thing that a gateway to this community, and you feel part of the community. So the takeaway here is that you need to be hosting in-person events such as masterminds or meetups. Document them and turn them into content to make your audience believe that they too belong to the community, even if they did not physically attend. So that being said, let me just do a quick recap of everything that we have set up until this point. So first thing you want to do is target a specific avatar. 100% of 10% is much better than 10% of 100%. So Nick became a authority here. Second is leverage the 3 to 4 formats. So you go to documentation, you just create a mission, figure out your why, add stakes, turn it into a series, integrate it into your life, show people what it's like to be a customer, share life lessons you learn along the way. Then you got strict value or educational, where Nick doesn't really do this. So the good thing is that I am gonna break down a more sophisticated personal brand that specifically creates this type of content in the next video. So don't worry, you will still learn to do that. And then you go to documentaries, where you just need to set a goal, create a why, add stakes, and deliver a strong message. Now all of this will potentially maybe funnel people into your solo podcast, which could be either solo or an own podcast, if your audience listens to podcasts. Finally, you need to be building, as I said, a community and not the audience. So be the guide, not the hero. If you're documenting, make it about you being the relatable guide. Make the value circle back to them. Make the money circle back to you. Secondly, craft a slogan based on a story that is relatable and inspiring to your ICP, and offer a physical product that is and offer a physical product that your ICP is likely to bring in a place with more of your ICP. Finally, host in-person events, masterminds, meetups, document them, and repurpose them. Now, if you're a founder doing anywhere from 5 to 7 figures, and you want to apply all of this framework and many others to your own personal brand, so that you can build a brand that creates a real impact and converts without feeling inauthentic or burning out, feel free to click the first link in the description to see how I can help you do exactly that. And yeah, this is a final. This is me selling you my offer. But I promise you, we're gonna leave you better than we found you. So let's click the first link in the description and we'll see how we can help you. And as always, subscribe to Scale Your Personal Brand. Peace.